about to listen to the Dr. Dahlia Show. Sassy, stimulating medical talk radio. Any medical advice Dr. Dahlia Wax gives on her show should not be substituted for an actual visit to your medical provider. And now, here's Dr. Dahlia.
We're back on the Dr. Dahlia Show, 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. I am really getting into the World Cup. I have been watching almost every match. I am loving it. This is what happens when football season ends. You start to watch more basketball, you watch more hockey, been watching a lot of baseball, but the World Cup, these matches have been absolutely amazing. But it's not going to be without its drama. It's like the Olympics has its drama, Super Bowl has its drama, the World Cup is not without its drama. And when we saw what happened to Balogun's suspension, I was watching that game where it looks like it's a trip. And then the ref gives him, this was in the game between Bosnia and Herzegovina, where foreign Balogun, I hope I'm pronouncing it, it's Balogun or Balogun, so I hope I'm pronouncing it right. But when foreign Balogun, it looked like they were both going for the ball at the same time. It looks like, because you could tell when they're sliding to trip another player. That didn't look like that to me. It looked like, okay, they fell. So I was thinking, I wouldn't have even thought he got a penalty, a red card, let alone a yellow card, let alone a red card. But a red card means you're out. And not only are you out of that game, you're ejected out of that game. You can't play in the following subsequent game, which means tonight's game, USA versus Belgium, one of our best players, Balogun, was not going to be able to play. Yellow card is more like a warning. You get two of them. But a red card is, completely unprofessional conduct, purposefully tripping, purposefully preventing a goal from unethical means. To get a red card, you have to really, really be, it's blatant, it's obvious. So, and I'm not saying this. I've been seeing some crappy calls. Even on teams that I was watching, I'm watching the Mexico game, watching the Spain game, I'm watching all these games. And, even though I'm American, if I see a bad call, I'm going to be like, oh, really, that's kind of a bad call. So Trump apparently had to step in and he asked FIFA to look into it, what's going on here. And so yesterday we got the news that Balogun was going to play, that they are suspending the suspension. All right. So good. All right. The only problem is Belgians. Not all of them are Flemish, but we call them Belgians, but some are Flemish, not all of them, but Belgians are now appealing. So there is still a chance that he might not be able to play, depending on what happens. And now it's becoming a pretty big controversy. And I don't understand why, because if you look at the footage, you're like, come on, man, really? And I think the majority of us could agree, one, it wasn't a penalty, but even if it was, not a red card. Okay, maybe at the most a yellow card, but there was no intent. You didn't see intent. Okay, it looked like two players running into each other, for crying out loud. So this is some of the back and forth we're seeing. Belgium soccer bosses are pretty upset. So they are now challenging Balogun's eligibility for the upcoming match, which is only in 8 hours, I think, from the time of this broadcast. For those of you that listen to my show later, it could be sooner. Game kicks off at 5 p.m. Pacific time, 8 p.m. Eastern. So I'm definitely going to be, ready to go. And it's interesting, too, because I see patients through telemedicine. Usually the numbers, usually the numbers go down, whether it's Super Bowl or whatever, because everybody's watching TV. And then when it's a break or whatever, then you see the calls come on. So I even though I'm working this afternoon, I'm definitely gonna watch it. But this is huge because Belgium is a good team. USA is favored, and I got money on USA. I always do. And USA kind of blew out Bosnia and Herzegovina with a 2-0 victory. And FIFA president Gianni Infantino had said after President Trump called him, they're going to better understand, or Trump wanted to better understand why the red card was given and why there was a suspension. And so a source, according to Daily Mail, said the U.S. government provided additional evidence that was used in the appeal process. So they quickly appealed it and said, okay, then his ban is going to be suspended for a 1-year probation period. FIFA announced this yesterday. If at all he messes up tonight, he's going to be red carded. Belgium not happy with that. So they are now, the Belgian Football Association, they say, is deeply concerned by the course of events and will continue to fight in the coming hours, days, months in defense of the fundamental principles of ethics, fair competition, and the interests of football as a whole. So now was the ref suspect? Trump suggested that he thinks that the referee was not being ethical, and so there's going to be more drama with this, whether Mulligan plays tonight or not, and I think he will. There's going to be drama, and then people are going to say, oh, America cheated, and so there's back and forth on should Trump have gotten involved. If Mulligan did, truly, shall we say, if it was red card worthy, Trump needs to stay out of it. But because it wasn't, and this was BS, Trump's going to call it like it is. I think we all are going to call it. But who's going to listen? Will Steven Spielberg call it and will FIFA listen? No, but FIFA's going to listen to Trump because FIFA's here in America. And I don't want there to be any question of, okay, well, America's going to be favored. Okay, if you screwed over our player, and it was obvious, it wasn't a yellow card, it was a red card. And there was no reason for that. I think Trump, anybody should, Elon Musk, whoever, right, wants to speak out, should speak out, because that was ridiculous. Why the ref would call it, I don't know. Refs make mistakes all the time. We've seen that. We've seen refs make bad calls. Ref, you suck is something I have said many, many times at many games. I've been saying it for, since, I've been to my first game. So ref, you suck happens. But when it's something this damaging where the team can't have their best player, now there is an argument where if the U.S. can't win without him, is the U.S. worthy of the World Cup? I mean, if we don't have our one player, are we really, 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 Argentina and Messi and stuff, but I think it's going to play. It's just looks like the controversy isn't over, and there's still some back and forth. 1-877 Doc Dolly, don't go away.
Have you ever thought you'd like to buy and sell houses but didn't know how or where to get the money? My name is Ron LeGrand, and over the past 40 years, I've bought over 3,000 houses without using my money or credit and taught thousands to do the same. Today, even in a virtual environment, we buy nice houses in nice neighborhoods using no banks, realtors, contractors, or other costly entanglements, and build huge cash flow and wealth without the hassle of tenants, all without credit and little or no money. You don't need a license or experience, and I'll show you exactly how it's done. Text FREE to 99799, and I'll send you my free training. I promise you I'll change the way you think about real estate and open the door to a new lifestyle that doesn't involve risk or rehabs and can quickly replace your current income. Text FREE to 99799 and let me show you how to take your life back and build cash flow and wealth from your home. That's FREE to 99799. Again, FREE to 99799.
Hi, it's Mark Falter, host of the Financial Fitness Show. I strongly believe that no one should ever pay 1 penny more in taxes than they are legally obligated. Unfortunately, for most hardworking Americans, this just isn't the case. Why? Because most people spend more time planning next weekend's getaway than trying to ensure they're going to pay less in taxes. My financial fitness team has put together some materials that I know are going to help you. It's the Tax Savings Kit. Tax Savings Kit includes 3 things: free tax analysis, top 10 ways to pay less in taxes, and an investor's guide to taxes. Now, how do you get it? Simple. 866-764-2635. Again, 866-764-2635. I'm Mark Falter. This is Financial Fitness, making personal finance profitable.
Dr. Dahlia Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-Dr. Dali, 1-877-DOCDALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. Big thanks to Daniel, our producer, and big thanks to y'all for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter or X at Dr. Dahlia, Facebook, The Dr. Dahlia Show, and on YouTube, click like and subscribe. So hope everybody had a good 4th of July. Tell you, the fireworks were absolutely amazing. They're getting shorter this year. I live in Las Vegas, Nevada, and so the fireworks shows are getting shorter and quicker, I noticed, and maybe it's because they're getting more expensive. But it was really, really nice. Multiple hotels let them off, and we had a pretty good view, and everybody was, pretty American and dressed up and patriotic, and it was really, really nice for feeling that unity that you feel when you look up at fireworks. And for me, I reflect on our freedoms and how lucky my family was to be able to come to America and escape the Holocaust. Although it took 20 years for America to finally let them in, I'm still so grateful that they could come in. But when we reflect on that, it's sadly being interrupted with these calls and these, like Mamdani's speech, talking about people being against deportation, and which again is very frustrating to me because every country deports. So I mean, is he speaking out about every country that's deporting or illegal immigrants, or just us? My guess, just us. And so, when you got through that and you got to spend, I think there were 8 minutes of fireworks, display. It was nice. It was a beautiful, beautiful 8 minutes. This article caught my eye though on what was the 1776 diet. So Fox News talks about what the diet was back in 1776. It wasn't Lucky Charms. It wasn't Ding Dongs. But some of these eating habits are making a comeback. Livestock, many old world crops that were introduced to North America by European explorers and settlers making a comeback. According to, I apologize here, the North America Center of Study of the Presidency and Congress, CSPC, they say indigenous peoples introduced corn to the colonists, and it became a core ingredient in many of their recipes. Beans, squash, potatoes were among other crops that became incorporated into colonial cooking. Cornmeal appeared in dishes such as hasty pudding, which was a thick porridge similar to polenta, and then Johnny cakes. Johnny cakes were griddle cakes, or close to pancakes, popular from New England down to the South, according to History Facts. Cornmeal, Johnny cakes, roast pork, and cream cheese were early American foods that CSPC has actually recipes for on its website. That's pretty cool. They say regional customs and crops greatly influenced what they call as aid. Rice and okra grew well, were plentiful in the South. French and American influencers also shaped eating habits. I'm sure the French brought escargot. A lot of snails out there in the South, so I'm sure we ate that too. Dutch, English, German immigrants settled more in the North, and so we saw more of that influence up in the northern area, sausages, things like that. Seafood such as rockfish and crab dominated the diets of many Maryland settlers. Makes sense, according to NPR. And meat was a delicacy. Meat was a status symbol, according to local food historian Joyce White. Beef was prized, and chicken, they didn't really eat a lot of chickens because they needed the chickens for egg production. So, if your cow is giving milk, your chickens are laying eggs, they weren't going to be as quick to kill it. But if your pig isn't giving you anything, they'll be eating more pig. Thomas Jefferson was very, very fond of the French, those decadent tastes of French wine. Apparently he liked macaroni and cheese. Also, he would eat black-eyed peas, turnip greens, and ham. Salted and preserved fresh meats like bacon, sausage, liver, pudding, and offal. OFFAL. Not sure what that is, but it sounds awful. Were also staples of the working class people's diet, yet the upper classes had access to white flour and sugar. And so you had single ingredient foods. You didn't add a lot of stuff to them. True, you had to preserve meats, in order to make them last. longer. They didn't have air conditioning at the time and refrigeration, but they would eat organ meats. Offal is, I think, organ meats. You wouldn't throw out the liver, the heart. You would eat chicken hearts. You would eat the brains of the animal. They'd eat a lot of stews. Let me see, what else would they do? George Washington wrote a recipe for small beer. So it looks like they liked beer. It had a small amount of alcohol. It was quick to make, safer to drink. The brewing process helped eliminate bacteria in the water. And they would drink beer as a, quote, everyday mainstay beverage. Oh, well, that hasn't changed for a lot of people out here. So, but again, some of the 1776 diet, do we really want people eating salted ham and organ meats? And, we really do recommend going more towards the vegetable, whole grains. That, I think, is the healthiest. But for those people that want to, party like it's 1776, that's some of the things they ate. Now, interestingly, they interviewed a 93-year-old on how he's been, where his longevity comes from. Now, apparently his career was in soccer. He was a soccer referee. And he's a great-grandfather. He still runs the field 3 times a week. He thinks modern soccer officials are too soft. But he's 93 years old, had taken charge of 5,500 matches over a 46-year officiating career. But he says that he credits his longevity to his diet. But get this. He says that it was influenced by strict wartime rations that he was fed as a teenager. He said it ensured he grew up eating healthy food rather than sweets and cakes. So that's interesting. So he has a morning bowl of oatmeal, some cereal, or marmalade on toast. And then that gives him plenty of energy. He still exercises. He still runs. And he still refs, from what I understand. He still refs men's, women's, children's games. And he looks really, really good. And still sharp mind. But interesting that it was the wartime rations that, because if you think back, and I have actually the little rationing coupons, I collect a lot of antiques and things from, World War II era and Civil War era. And, your flour, your sugar, those were harder to get. So you're not going to get a lot of cakes and sugars and sweets when it was wartime. So what they were able to get and eat, they had to, if it was like a piece of fresh fruit or bread without any topping on it, or maybe some meat or Spam or whatever that they had access to. So we didn't screw up our food like we're doing now. And I look back and see when the food industry really took advantage. And they started taking advantage post-wartime. That's when, I think, because they knew that there was going to be such a demand for chocolate and sweets and foods that you could store that weren't perishable. And then we got more chips and crisps and cookies and biscuits and all the other things that were, Coca-Cola became more popular. It was also the eating out era. You're going to go to the diner. You're going to go to the kids are going to want to meet at places. They're going to want to eat. They're going to want to go to the movie theater. They're going to want to get snacks and ice cream and goodies. And so I really believe the post-World War II era really spurned, even though the Industrial Revolution spurned a lot of preservatives in our food because people had to, work in urban areas and they couldn't eat farm to table foods all the time. So they had to be able to get something, from a store that was kept fairly safe. Unfortunately, there were some really, really bad actors who would take milk, and if the milk started to sour, the cheese started to change color, they would bleach. And they would be putting some really, really bad stuff. And the FDA had to step in and ensure that our food was safe. But it really was after World War II where it was this big push and demand for, there to be food outside of the house and or food you could pick up and bring, and then TV dinners and making meals quick. Also, what spurred that too is women were working. More women were working. after World War II. So they couldn't be home all day cooking and preparing the meals. So many of them that were now in the workforce had to be able to come up with a easy, quick meal. And so these easy, quick meals that you were able to do with TV dinners and things like that you later saw in the 60s and 70s made a killing. And unfortunately, it's killing us. 1-877-Doc Dolly. Don't go away.
Hi, everyone. Super Bowl champ Vernon Davis here from Legal Help Center. If you've been injured in an accident and think you deserve compensation, listen up, because we have legal professionals standing by right now to answer your questions for free. You can find out if you have a case and how much it's potentially worth. The call is free, the consultation is free, and you can speak with a live agent right now. So if you or someone you know were injured in an accident of any kind, call now to find out if you have a case and how much you could potentially get.
Thanks, Vernon. You heard it, folks. If you've been injured, call and find out how much you qualify for. Call 800-679-0800. That's 800-679-0800. 800-679-0800. Advertisement sponsored by Legal Help Center. May not be available in all states. Not available in California.
Back on the Dr. Dolly Show, 1-877 Dolly, 1-877-DOC-DALI. All right, I don't want women to get mad at me for this one. I love women. I think women can do any job they want. Women should have equal access and opportunity, but we got to talk kind of upfront and direct about some shortcomings that may be putting them in danger. And public safety in danger if we keep struggling in some of the careers that we're in and not addressing it, without fear of going against DEI or woke, etc. So we keep seeing, and we've seen these throughout the last few years and decades, where women officers on video seem to, some of them, not all, have some struggles with some larger male multiple suspects. And it's not necessarily the woman's fault. I mean, you could have a single man there that also gets overcome by suspects. But there's been some videos where there were multiple female officers struggling to subdue one suspect. Or in this particular case, where there was a female officer who was getting beat up by teenagers. And this was at a block party in North Charleston, South Carolina on Saturday night. It was a 4th of July event. And you see this officer getting punched in the face. And a young man was holding her down so another woman could attack her with a baton and punch her. Another officer was able to intervene, drag the female officer away. And then he had to use his taser to hold off the teens. Then the teens, from what I understand, got arrested. But interestingly, Ann Coulter commented on this video. And what she said has kind of drawn a lot of controversy, but it definitely warrants a conversation. And she wrote, yes, that plus prison time for the quote unquote teens. She said, but putting a small blonde woman in a police uniform is waving a red flag at the quote teens. And so, I've known many female officers, and they're badasses. They are. But when I'm researching, a lot of the training and what they have female officers do, which is actually what all officers get trained on, is how to de-escalate, how to do certain techniques that can provide you like specialized, like defensive tactics. They say reliance on community backup. And I've spoken to many, male officers, and it's easier for them if their partner's male, because they know that if there's a female officer, they may have to intervene. And they don't want to say that they feel like that person is not at 100%, but that's kind of the feeling that many people are getting. Now, like I said, this is something that doesn't get talked about because everybody's worried about stepping on toes or being anti-DEI or whatever. Females can be amazing. Detectives, police officers, warriors, they can. But have we been hiring some that might not be able to withstand? Now, if you're being beat up by multiple teams, it doesn't matter if you're a woman, man. If you're outnumbered, you're outnumbered. Okay, our police officers aren't Rambo. But are we now, because of DEI and because of, are people assuming that the average female cop isn't a badass? They undergo huge physical requirements, and I mean, they have to do the push-ups or squats. They have to pass their tests. I would not mess with any woman cop. She could kick my ass easy. But are people getting the perception that there may be some, because of all the videos out there, because of what they see, because of some of the narratives that people are kind of pushing because of DEI, are they thinking, oh, I'm good, it's a female cop? Now, when I was in New York and there were cops everywhere for the Taylor Swift wedding and for the World Cup, you did see a lot of female officers. And I was like, way to go, girls. Yeah. And the guy officers, I was like, thank you guys for all you do. But they do make sure that there's a female with a male. They make sure that there's that backup. And I think a lot of police forces have been able to very successfully, have forces that are diversified. But when you're seeing a female officer alone or two female officers struggle to subdue a suspect, it kind of begs the question, how, what's happening with the training in terms of, are they able to, use these specialized defensive tactics if they are one-on-one with a 6'5", 300-pound man, or if they are jumped by two men? And so when you look at some of these studies, looking at how female officers do, there's been some discussion on, are they using more excessive force? Are women using more excessive force? There was that one case where somebody was not, I guess was being arrested after a traffic violation. And I think they had multiple citations. And so while the female officer was trying to arrest him, he breaks away because she couldn't get him he was fighting her. She couldn't get him into the handcuffs, get him into the handcuffs. As he drives away, she reaches for her taser, but it wasn't her taser, it was the gun. Shoots him. He dies. And, that I forget where that was. And I apologize, I don't have that case in front of me. But so there's been studies looking at, are females more prone to using then their tasers, their equipment, and then run the risk of excessive force because they might not have the same strength as their suspects. And the studies have not found that, though. They've been looking into that, but there's been that suggestion. So, because people will say, well, look, just give a female officer a baton, a taser, she'll be fine. But is she? I mean, when you saw this woman get beat up, did she have enough training? Was she prepared? Why was she in a position where she was alone at the time? So it's one of those things where nobody is going to, I believe, in a police department, say, okay, we need to kind of train the female officers differently. Right? Because it's all now about making sure that everybody's treated equal. Nobody's has a reputation or a stereotype of female or transgender female or biological or this. While we're getting rid of all that language, we still have the fact that many women could be at risk if they aren't equipped, if they don't have laws protecting them in terms of being able to use a taser or a baton if they can't physically subdue a suspect that's bigger than them, and the reputation or the or the shall we say the how suspects may infer that they may not be as much of a threat. So, I don't know. Ann Coulter, saying, putting a small blonde in a police uniform. I don't know if I agree with what she said, but it is something that, we are seeing, some more, delicate, very beautiful people. And anybody who wants to be a police officer, God bless them. I mean, put them on the floor. Anybody who wants to be in our military, God bless them. But are there going to be, is it okay? And I think it is to, have, certain, shall we say, teams or certain, I forget what the term for it is, battalions, or where, if they feel like they need to be all men, is that allowed? And I think it is. If our Navy SEAL team is going to be, for days where they have to sleep in small quarters and they don't want to fear that they could accidentally hit a boob or whatever and then be accused of something, that could affect the way they operate. And if females want to, they'll be in an all-female group, or if they want to be, I think whoever wants to defend this country should be given the tools that they could do to defend. But I think we also have to understand that there are certain limitations that individuals may have. 1-877 Doc Dolly. Don't go away.
Hey guys, it's Clyde. We've had a lot of requests for Ground Zero merchandise, so we put together an online store with a big variety of high-quality items. I'm really excited to let you know about these things. We have a lot to offer you and your loved ones. In addition to our regular apparel, such as t-shirts, beanies, hoodies, and hats, we've expanded our product line with posters, flags, aprons, mugs, and a whole lot more. We also have Ground Zero collectibles, along with a limited edition of items like a Clyde Lewis canvas portrait, a Ground Zero embroidered jacket that will certainly make for great gifts and for interesting conversations with family and friends. And we now offer publications such as Ron Patton's book about mind control, MK Zine, and back copies of the official magazine of Ground Zero while it was in print. Paranoia, the Conspiracy Reader, also coming in 2023, are updated and revised books that I've written. There's a secure and easy-to-use shopping cart for your purchases. So shop today at our official store by going to groundzeromerch.com. Again, that's groundzeromerch.com.
Hey, America. How tired are you of mainstream corporate media's biased narratives and manipulated news? Their dishonesty and attempts to influence this generation have been exposed, put on display for anyone who's even half paying attention. But the New American Magazine has been an honest source of news and commentary for over 50 years. This is your opportunity to receive the stalwart of principled journalism at a deep discount. Picture a beautifully published magazine arriving at your doorstep twice a month, packed with insightful stories written with integrity. It's also available digitally on the New American's mobile app. Get up to speed with intelligent coverage from a freedom perspective. Right now, for a limited time, the New American is available to radio listeners at a 25% discount on a new subscription. Visit thenewamerican.com/radio25 and receive 25% off. Subscribe today at thenewamerican.com/radio25.
Back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Dr. Dolly, 1-877 DOCDALI. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter or X at Dr. Daliah, Facebook the Dr. Daliah Show, and on YouTube, click like and subscribe. So, my sons are adults now, but when one of them says, "Mom, you want to go see Toy Story?" because he remembers growing up with Toy Story. As a mommy, I'm like, of course, my little baby boy. Let's go on a mommy and B day and go see Toy Story. The other son was like, nah, I'm going to wait for Odyssey to come out, which I can't wait for Odyssey. I think it's going to be a great movie. But when one of my sons like, I want to see Toy Story, I'm like, I'm down. I'm with you. So we went and saw it. And I like the Toy Story series a lot. It's I think it's amazing. I also think it's fascinating how Tom Hanks, who entertained me in the 80s, right? Who I was a big fan of in the 80s and 90s. My kids are fans of. Now they're actually fans of his son also, who's in Jumanji and things like that, and Band of Brothers. But, my son, they know Tom Hanks. Same thing with Eddie Murphy. Eddie Murphy, my favorite comedian of all times. And they cannot wait for the Donkey movie with Shrek, right? So I think that's really, really cool when you have these multi-generational actors. Same thing with multi-generational singers like Elton John, Madonna, Cher, Beyonce, where, everybody gets to kind of, they relate because there were songs that you grew up with and songs now that they're growing up with. So very cool. But with Toy Story 5, no spoilers, although I don't think most people really care about, spoilers when it comes to a kid movie. Most of the theater was adults. I was really surprised by that because, many of them, I guess, grew up with Toy Story. And the premise of this latest movie is you got the toys, and even though every other movie is about the kids growing up and maybe not wanting the toys, this premise was on, well, what about tech? Right? Where the kids are making fun of other kids who are playing with toys. And everybody's on their lily pad or their tech. And you're watching this, and even though I as a physician know, but I'm really, really glad this movie did this because I think there's a lot of people that opened their eyes to what their kids could be going through with these group chats, with these connections with other kids. And whereas when I grew up, if you wanted to connect with another kid, you had to get out of your house, or hopefully your parents didn't have you grounded. You had to leave your house and be able to go across the street with a toy or something that would hopefully attract that kid to get out of the house so you all could play. So there had to be a little bit of sales, a little bit of marketing, a little bit of manipulation, a little bit of planning to get somebody to play with you and to get somebody to interact with you. Now it's a whole new world, especially with online. I mean, look at how hard it is to date somebody. I mean, for me, I'd show up at the bar, right? I'd see who'd buy me a drink. I'd smile, wear maybe a push-up bra, and I got to meet some people. Not that was the best way to do it. Now it's all online. You go online. It's so now kids and adults have to learn how to market themselves in the cyber world. And I think that's very, very weird to me. Especially when it comes to jobs, and people are telling me they can't even get through these bots and AI, so nobody gets to see your personality. Nobody gets to see. It's interesting. I've been offered some acting positions, and I'm like, okay, where do I go? I'm going to be in New York. What floor? What room? I'll take the subway. I'll be there in on exact time. Like, no. Just Zoom your video. And you're like, yeah, but I've taken acting classes and I've done reads and it's different in person. There's a feel. But if you're not doing Broadway and you're doing TV, then there's an argument. Well, they just want to see you on TV, but you're missing so much. You're missing that interaction. I don't know what I would do if Corey ever leaves me and I got to start dating again. And I will date again. I know everybody says, I tell him, oh, yeah, you're going to be the only one. And if you ever leave me, I'm not. Oh, no. I'm too social. Same thing. And I told him, I go, you date. You find yourself a new wife. God forbid anything happens to me. You got to do what you got to do. It's important. Plus, someone's got to take care of you. But I'm really dreading, God forbid that would happen, because how do you sell yourself? I mean, you guys see me on screen. I mean, I'm not attractive. I'm not. It's harder to make somebody laugh. It's harder to connect. So, you're watching Toy Story and you're seeing all these toys, and it's interesting because you're looking at those toys, and some of them are like, I didn't really like them. I was really bored with them. Like Barbie. I hated playing with Barbies. I was like, let me play with some Transformers. Give me a big wheel. I really didn't like tea parties. I didn't like dolls. I wasn't into stuffed animals because I wanted to play stickball, or I wanted to play kickball or dodgeball or ride my big wheel. That's what I wanted to do. I didn't want to pretend. I'm not very creative. Right? Big shock there. I didn't want to pretend that Ken and Barbie were falling. I didn't care if Ken and Barbie were falling in love. I don't care about that. You know, if you did give me the two dolls, it'd probably be Barbie, kicking Ken's ass. That's probably what I would have done with those. But my brother's Transformer toys, I was so jealous. Mom, Dolly's playing with my toys again. Go play with your toys and leave his. I know, but his toys were cooler. The robots, the Voltron, all that stuff. That was way, way cooler. So, but you're watching this and you're looking and seeing these kids on these screens and them just not going outside and playing. They're just sitting and they're not getting outside in the sun and then they don't know how to communicate with others. They're struggling to communicate with others, and we just wonder, why are we still allowing this to happen? What are parents doing? Now, on the flip side, one thing my parents always was worried about, I remember being in an apartment complex, and there were always older kids, and they could always get us into trouble. Like, all right, what we're going to do is we're going to go into the laundry room of the apartment complex, and let's kind of, mess some stuff up. Or let's go and do this. So I remember my parents were always like, I don't want you going out there. I don't want you playing with those kids. I don't want you, and so, they kept saying go play outside, but then they started to restrict it because a lot of these kids were starting to be bad influences. And so now I think the average parent fears that if your kid is out there, with another kid, they're going to get abducted, they're going to do drugs, they're going to do vandalism, they're going to get into mayhem. And even though that's part of the learning curve for parents, are like, I don't want my kid getting a rap sheet. I told you what happened with my son. We're at the park. I'm dealing with his younger brother, the baby. He meets this girl saying, I want to go to the ice cream truck. I go, what ice cream truck? And it was just a white van all the way on the other side, like football field distance, right? 100 yards all the way. And I'm like, no, that could be dangerous. No ice cream. We'll deal with it at home. Then I'm changing a diaper, whatever. I look up and he's already halfway down the field going to this unmarked white van. So I had to leave the baby with a complete stranger and then bolt, and I could run fast, bolt, grab him, and then I took him home and I, tried to smack his butt to teach him, you got to listen to me. That was the first time I ever spanked him. They giggled the whole time. Because he just got a bubble butt like mine, so he didn't even feel it. My hand's hurting and he's just giggling. But so a lot of parents are like, look, I don't want my kid abducted. I don't want my kid getting hit by a car. I don't want my kid. It's easier and safer for them to be home. In fact, I remember making that argument once. I asked my husband. My kids were in high school at the time. I go, where are the kids going to be tonight? And my husband said, I think they're all online with their friends. And he's like, should we say something? And I remember saying, you know what? They're not getting drunk. They're not going to be doing drugs. They're still hanging out with their friends, but they're safe in our house. I'm not going to say anything. I'm good with it. And then I was like thinking to myself, they really do need to kind of get out there. And, they do. My kids did. But I remember even telling myself with that one Saturday night, they're home. They're safe. So we need to find a fine balance where they're played outside off the computers. They really need to be not even a balance. It should be 90-10 where they're outside and playing. But ensure they're safe. The 1-877-DOC-DOLLY. Don't go away. Dr. Dahlia here. Are you tired, burned out, gaining weight, succumbing to the daily pressures of life? Well, how's your dopamine doing? How you feel right now, how you'll feel an hour from now, and how you'll feel next week is completely reliant on your dopamine. Our daily motivation and willingness to push through challenges depends on the intricate chemical process dopamine provides. Christian Kalikas and I created Deploying Dopamine, a book that tells you what dopamine is, when it dysfunctions, and how to successfully deploy it when needed. Find Deploying Dopamine on Amazon today. Check it out.
Carl Amari here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you, and be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited-time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.